Hi, welcome back to my YouTube channel. By now you all know me. If not, my name's Mario. I put out videos primarily on clinical research. On occasion I talk about personal finance, and someday I hope to put out some travel videos. In today's video, I'm going to talk about connection, and more specifically, how you build connection with sites as a clinical research associate. Before I get started doing that, I want to remind you to please smash that like button if you haven't done so already, and to consider subscribing to this channel. It's currently at 405 subscribers, on the way to 500 at the end of 2021. I want to thank you all for your support. Also, it's currently December 24th, so I want to take a moment to wish you a very Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. If you are curious why you see me in this red t-shirt so much, it is my de facto travel t-shirt. It's kind of thick, so it works well if I land somewhere that it's going to be cold. And it also works reasonably well if I land somewhere where it's just hot and humid. So I'm not dying in either scenario. So that is why you see me in this t-shirt quite a bit. And I am headed to San Francisco in a few hours. So trying to get this video out before I hop on that plane. Now, why am I talking about connection, and why am I going to cover how to effectively build that relationship? One of the most commonly asked questions I've gotten throughout my CRA career is how to deal with problematic sites. And oftentimes there is some problem with the connection between the CRA and the sites. So sites become non-responsive to them. Sites are problematic in many different ways. But in order to really talk well about how to deal with problematic sites, I first need to talk about how you should go about building your relationship with sites. And that's what this video is. It's some pointers on how you build your relationship with sites. So let me start from the very beginning. You are a CRA, your line manager has just called you or emailed you and said, hey, we're going to be assigning you this site. So what should you do once you get that email call from your manager saying this is going to be your site? The first thing I'd do is I'd go and find any prior visit reports. So if there's a pre-study visit report or a site initiation visit report or a prior monitoring visit report, and go and read it. You want to get a sense of the site before you start talking to the site. And that can be accomplished by reading these reports. And even if none of them are available, go and read the site feasibility questionnaire that the site may have filled out. So that is the first step. Just get familiar with the site peripherally by reading a prior report or a questionnaire or something that the site has filled out. The next step is to send that introductory email. I think this is key to building an effective relationship. Sending an email, and in this email, you want to cover why you are being assigned to be the CRA for the site. What is it about you that makes you qualified to be the CRA for the site? So in my particular case, this is often my oncology experience. So I always include the number of years of oncology experience and also possibly the specific therapeutic area within oncology and my experience in that specific area. The other thing I like to do is I like to come across as personable and include something fun about myself or a reason why I'd like to visit their city. So just as a sample, let's just say I have a site in Denver, Colorado that was just assigned to me. I'm based in Tampa, Florida. So I'm putting together that email. And in that email, I'll say, hi, my name is Mario. I come to you with 16 years of clinical research experience. I've been monitoring oncology studies for 13 years. I really look forward to working with you on this project. Also, I look forward to visiting Denver. As based in Florida, I don't get much opportunity to hike, and I really enjoy hiking and would love to cover some hiking or do some hiking while I'm in Denver. Just something to really drive home the point. This is why I'm your CRA and I'm a likable person. Now, some sites will respond to that immediately, say, hi, nice to meet you. We look forward to working with you on the project, or we look forward to you visiting our site. And some sites won't respond at all. Don't take any offense. It's 50-50 after that email. Some sites respond immediately. Some sites don't respond. You'll get either of those. And they're both okay. You've introduced yourself either way. Now, the next thing that I do is I would pick up the phone and call that study coordinator. I don't know if I mentioned this, I'll just mention this again. So that initial email should go to the PI and the study coordinators and regulatory coordinator or anybody relevant as far as personnel. But following that email, I would pick up the phone and talk to this primary study coordinator, the person you'll be working with. And on that phone call, I'd cover some very basic logistical things. For example, I would ask the study coordinator, do you prefer calls and emails? Is there a better day to call you if needed? Are there better days for monitoring visits? What are your monitoring hours like? Are there any specific requirements for me to come on site? And in this current age, even if whether or not you allow on-site visits. So I'll get a little bit of those basic questions out in that first conversation. Again, just make sure you're getting everything you need to do your job effectively, and also be friendly and continue to build your relationship with that study coordinator, especially the primary study coordinator who you're going to be interacting with a lot. So you really want to come off on the right foot for that initial conversation that you have. So now I've covered 3 things that you should do to this point. You should have read any prior reports. You should have sent that introductory email to the PI and study coordinators, and you should talk on the phone with that primary study coordinator. Now you're at the point where you need to schedule your visit. So get your visit scheduled, and I'm going to give you some pointers for remote visits and then for on-site visits and how you go about establishing the connection in either mode, if this is remote or if this is on-site. So I will go ahead and acknowledge it's much harder to build connections during remote visits. I have struggled with that, and I've had to learn quickly since 2020 on how to deal with remote visits. So some things that I found that were pretty effective was one, if you're talking to the site, especially if you're talking over Teams, Skype, Zoom, turn on your camera at least for the first few minutes. So if I'm having a conversation with the PI, I like to turn on my camera for 1 or 2 minutes, say, this is what I look like, this is who I am. And then I'll just turn it off and talk, just keep on talking. But you want to get that, allow the opportunity for the site to put a face with the name. So that's what I have found to be effective. The other thing that I found to be effective for remote visits is to kind of break it up into a little bit of like 2 distinct parts. For example, break the visit up into 9 a.m. to noon, and then try to set up a call with a study coordinator or shoot out an email at noon with what you've found to that point, and then ask the study coordinator again to meet with you at 4 o'clock. So continue then post that conversation, let's just say 12:30 to 4, and then meet with the study coordinator again and talk about what you are finding to that point. This is especially important for sites with high enrollment or lots of issues. You don't want to be sending a huge, gigantic email at the end of the day or at the end of the visit saying, these are all the things that I've found, and then just overwhelm the coordinator. Just make sure you have that ongoing dialogue. These are my findings to this point. Sometimes the study coordinator will address them, and then you don't need to worry about them, because the last thing you want to do at the end of your visit is say, hey, here's the 100 things I found, here's this long email. So continue this conversation. So turn on the camera, have an active conversation. Definitely talk to the PI on remote visits, especially. I feel like if you're on site, you can get away with doing it every other visit, which is what's the standard in most monitoring plans. But if you are doing a remote visit, I would really try to talk to the PI even for 5 minutes and say, hey, this is not going to be a long conversation. I just want to introduce myself. I just want to have a brief conversation with the PI. And most sites will gladly give you 5 minutes with the PI. And even if you have nothing to talk about, just say, hey, this is how the study is going. This is what enrollment is like to date. Are you facing issues with recruitment? What do you think about the study? Are there things that we could be doing better? Do you have any concerns? And also, one of the key things in this conversation with the PI when you are remote is to make sure they have oversight of the study. That is one of the most commonly cited findings in an audit. It'll say that the PI does not have adequate oversight. So by talking to the PI, you sort of can gauge how much they do have oversight and how much they oversee the trial. And also, it's a lot harder remotely to ensure adequate PI oversight. So yes, you can make sure they're signing documents and labs and reviewing them, but that conversation is really important. On site, it's much easier to see what's going on at the site. You can see, oh yeah, we'll call the PI right now because we have a question, or it's just much easier to assess whether or not there's adequate PI oversight. So those are tips for remote visits. Now, on site, this is much easier for most people. You go, you introduce yourself, you monitor, you explain throughout the day what's going on. You have the study coordinator come sit with you a few times, and really just talk to them both about the study and try to get to know them a little bit. Some of the things that I will ask, I'll try to get people to know people on a more personal level, are things like, hey, I'm first time visiting the city. Do you have any restaurant recommendations or places I should go post the visit? Or on occasion, I may ask a study coordinator how far you live from the site. For example, if this is a really small town that I know the study coordinator probably doesn't live in, I'll ask, hey, do you live in town or do you live far away? Just some personal stuff, nothing too personal, but most people don't mind telling you, hey, I live an hour away from the site, or I live 30 minutes. I don't even know in what direction. So it's just a general question. And actually, that really does help me also for scheduling of visits, because I know if a study coordinator lives far away, they generally want to be done earlier in the day. So I've had sites that have monitoring hours from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. And I know this is often because study coordinators are trying to get out at 3 p.m. to beat traffic and do their long drive. But understanding something like that is kind of one of the keys to an effective relationship. Like, I know why the site is closing early, and it's to let their staff get home in a reasonable hour. I also know if I'm going to a site like that, I need to plan to be at that site by 6:45 a.m. And really try to get my monitoring wrapped up sooner rather than later, so I'm not there till the very last minute trying to ask them to do things. You'll get sites that go one way or the other, and I will say it is a little bit challenging as a CRA because you're often dealing with time changes, or I'm not necessarily a morning person, so getting up at 6 in the morning or 5:30 to be at site by 6:30 is or 6:45 is rather challenging for me. But I try to accommodate what works best for the site. I'm only there for a few days. I can make do, and I really want to have as positive a relationship with the site as possible. The final tip I have for this video is when you're writing to a site, make sure your communications are extremely specific, that they're practical, and that they are achievable by the site. So here are the queries that I issued. This is the number of queries that I've issued. Most of the queries are straightforward. If you have questions, you may have questions about these queries, and let me know. So just make sure you're very specific in your communications and that they are practical, achievable, and ask the site, hey, these were my findings. When do you think you can get them addressed by? Or sometimes they'll just do it there and then. Sometimes it's things that can't be done there and then. For example, maybe the subject dated the consent form with the incorrect date. I have seen this happen a few times in my career where subjects will accidentally date the consent form with their birth date instead of the actual date. So that needs to be corrected ideally by the subject. Or if the subject's not reachable, then you can document that it was an error and why the error occurred. But as a site, then you need to start asking, why are you not catching this? Because sites should be reviewing the consent forms themselves and looking at them thoroughly and making sure everything's correct. So at that point, I would start having a little bit of conversation about, hey, how do you look at consent forms? What's your practice for having subjects assign consent? Who reviews the consent form after it's signed? And why wasn't this mistake caught? You really want to start getting to that level of detail in some of these conversations once you're starting to find issues. But those are my tips. Those are my tips for remote visits and on-site visits. And the most important thing you need to do when communicating with study coordinators is show empathy to their situation as appropriate. For example, if the study coordinator looks completely overwhelmed and you can tell that they have too many studies or there's too much going on, understand coordinators often find themselves in that situation, and have some empathy for that situation, and also try to figure out how you can be of help. Hey, is sitting with you while you answer queries helpful? Is walking you through different things helpful? Just do that, and then you should be good. And I apologize. My phone is ringing in the background. I clearly forgot to mute it, but I am guessing that is about my flight to San Francisco. So I am going to end that video here. And thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it. And again, have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Thank you.